In just 1 year, the Wizards somehow landed 2 All-Stars, the #1 pick and the best prospect in basketball. That shouldn't even be possible. The Wizards' rebuild has felt like it's been going on forever. Every fan base has that one friend who swears this year's different, right before watching his team go 19-63 again. So when I tell you the Wizards' rebuild is actually different this time, hear me out, because this isn't hope, and it isn't vibes. This front office decided to lock in and pulled off one of the weirdest, most chaotic rebuilds in modern NBA history. Let's talk about how it happened. Before we get to any of the chaos, you need to understand something. Washington already tried the build around 2 real stars plan once before. And for a few years, it actually worked. Which is exactly why it hurt so much when it didn't. Washington's only championship banner is from 1978, back when they were the Bullets, and honestly that's ancient history at this point. Most fans weren't alive for it. There was also a fun little run in the mid-2000s with Gilbert Arenas doing hibachi things and dropping 60 on the Lakers. But that group never got out of the first round either. The version of Wizards' rebuild that actually matters to this story starts in 2010, when the team was so bad they landed the #1 pick and took John Wall, fastest point guard in the country who was basically a human highlight reel. 2 years later, they drafted Bradley Beal at #3. A kid who came in as a knockdown shooter and slowly grew into one of the best scoring guards in the league. And just like that, the front office had its 2 cornerstones. That's the blueprint every rebuild dreams about. Hit on back-to-back top picks and build around a genuine 2-man core. And for a few years, it actually worked. Wall and Beal dragged Washington to the playoffs 5 times between 2014 and 2018. And in 2017, they had their best season in almost 40 years. 49 wins, a scrappy, defiant group that took the Celtics to a Game 7 in the second round. Wall hit a dagger 3 in Game 6 that's still one of the most electric shots in franchise history. Pure microwave heat off the dribble, and Beal matched him bucket for bucket with 33 that same night. That was the ceiling. That was as close as this era ever got. And it still wasn't enough. Because underneath the highlights, Wall's body was breaking down. Heel surgeries, and eventually a ruptured Achilles in 2019 that basically ended the version of him that made this team dangerous. Beal became a walking bucket on his own after that, averaging 30+ a night at one point. But a superstar with no help around him is just a really good stat line on a losing team. The rebuild that had a real foundation, a real timeline, and a real 2-star core still failed. Not because the vision was wrong, but because you can't outplan an Achilles tendon. So what do you do when your golden era doesn't end with a parade but with a stretcher? If you're the Wizards, the answer is blow up your roster while it holds any value. Disappear while the rest of the league barely notices you're gone. After Wall went down, Washington didn't get good, and it didn't get bad enough to be great at losing either. They traded Wall to Houston for Russell Westbrook in the middle of a pandemic season. Basically, 2 franchises handing each other their problems and hoping it looked like progress. It didn't. Westbrook was out within a year, shipped to the Lakers, and Beal was left running the offense solo again. Now a 3-time All-Star with genuinely nobody around him. For nearly 5 seasons after the Wall-Beal peak, the Wizards were stuck in the most brutal place in professional sports. Good enough to dodge a bottom-of-the-barrel pick, but nowhere close to a playoff win. A play-in loss here, a 35-win season there. Middle of the draft picks that never moved the needle. This wasn't a rebuild, it was treading water, and everybody in DC could feel it. No timeline, no real identity, no plan. Beal kept showing up and kept getting buckets, but empty 25-point nights on a team going nowhere just isn't a winning formula. By the summer of 2023, the front office finally admitted the obvious. Beal had to go. They shipped him to Phoenix, waiving his no-trade clause was the real domino, and moved Kristaps Porzingis to Boston, making it official. This was a real rebuild now, all the way down to the studs. They even flipped the pieces they got back for Beal, turning Chris Paul into Jordan Poole and future picks days later, squeezing every last asset out of the reset. That decision, the full teardown, is where the actual interesting stuff starts. So Washington starts stacking picks. Bilal Coulibaly at number 7 in 2023, Alex Sarr at number 2 in 2024, Bub Carrington and Keyshawn George right behind him. Trae Johnson in 2025. Classic tank and build. Nothing weird about that part. Half the league is running that same playbook right now. Here's where it gets weird. In the middle of what was shaping up to be Wizards' third straight 60-loss season, while they were actively trying to lose games for lottery position, the front office was working the phones on something else entirely. Then the entire rebuild took a turn nobody saw coming. Washington traded for Trae Young, and they got him cheap too. Just CJ McCollum and Corey Kispert, basically salary filler for a 4-time All-Star point guard who's a certified sniper from deep. And somehow, they still weren't finished. 3 weeks later, they traded for Anthony Davis too, sending out a pile of role players and draft capital in an 8-player blockbuster with Dallas. That's a team in the middle of a tank job adding 2 former All-Stars in the same season. Borderline unheard of. 2. And it gets even more interesting, to say the least, because both guys got hurt almost immediately. Davis literally never played a single game for Washington that season. Hand injury, never debuted. Young managed 5 games before a knee and quad issue shut him down, and the Wizards lost all 5. So despite adding 2 recent All-Stars at the trade deadline, Washington still finished dead last, 17-65, the worst mark in the league. They lost 26 of their final 27 games, including the last 10 in a row. They even let Bam Adebayo drop 83 points on their heads in a single game, the second highest total ever scored on an NBA team. Some people online called the whole thing a fraud season, like the front office was tanking with extra steps. That's not tanking though, that's a full system collapse that happened to land on the right side of history. And that disaster is exactly what handed them the number 1 pick. Washington won the lottery, 14% odds, tied for the best in the room, for the first time since they took John Wall back in 2010. Last time they landed that first pick, they found a gem. On draft night, they used the pick on AJ Dybantsa, a 19-year-old forward out of BYU who dropped 25.5 a night in college, shot 51% from the floor, and only bothered taking meetings with 2 teams in the whole pre-draft process, Washington and Utah. His college coach said the game visibly slowed down for him as the season went on, and it showed. He carved up the Big 12 tournament and locked himself in as the consensus top prospect in the class. He picked the Wizards without much drama. Stop and think about where this franchise was 1 year earlier. No stars, no direction, a fan base bracing for another lost season. 12 months later, Washington has 2 established All-Stars, the number 1 pick in a loaded draft, and a young core that's already tasted real minutes. That's not a slow climb out of the basement. That's a complete transformation, and it happened almost by accident. Nobody draws up a rebuild like this on a whiteboard. It just happened. So here's the question everyone's asking. Are the Washington Wizards actually legit? Can Trae, AD, and AJ make some noise in the Eastern Conference? But collecting talent is the easy part. Now Washington has to prove all of these pieces can actually work together. The Wall-Beal era had stars but no depth behind them. The Purgatory years had depth but no stars. This roster, for the first time in Wizards history, has both at the same time. And that's not nothing. It also helps that the same front office, Michael Winger and Will Dawkins, has been running this whole build since the Beal trade back in 2023. There's been no reset, no new regime wiping the board clean. Just one continuous plan that happened to take a wild left turn at the trade deadline. Think about what's actually sitting on this roster. Trae Young just re-signed for 4 years and $212 million. So he's not a rental guy. He's the guy. The floor general who's supposed to make everybody else's life easier. Anthony Davis is extension eligible in August, and even in limited run this year, he was still a two-way problem when healthy. 10-time All-Star, legit rim protector, a stretch 5 who can also guard the paint. Behind them, you've got an actual young core that's already tasted real minutes. Alex Sarr averaged 16 and 7 with 2 blocks a night before a foot injury ended his year, and he's expected back at full health for opening night. Keyshawn George quietly became their most consistent bucket getter at nearly 15 a game. And Bub Carrington and Trae Johnson both have flashes of being legit shot creators, even if Carrington's still figuring out how to be a true point guard. Not everybody popped. Bilal Coulibaly actually took a step back this year and finished the season on the shelf with a heel injury, which is a real question mark. And now you're adding Dybantsa on top of all of it, a smooth, do-everything scorer who profiles as a cheat code if the fit works. Real talk, there's a logjam here too, and it's fair to wonder how it all fits. Davis, Sarr, Dybantsa, George, and Coulibaly all live in that 4 through 5, do a little of everything zone, and somebody's minutes are going to get squeezed. That's a good problem to have compared to we don't have enough good players, but it's still a problem a coaching staff actually has to solve. And here's the part I won't pretend away. Almost none of these guys have played real minutes together. Young and Davis combined for 5 total games in a Wizards jersey. That's it. This whole thing is still a bet. Nobody actually knows how these guys mesh yet. And the East just got scarier, not weaker. The Knicks are the defending champs. Indiana gets a healthy Tyrese Halliburton back alongside Ivica Zubac. Miami added Giannis. Toronto added Kawhi. Philly added Jaylen Brown. Boston gets Tatum back. So no, I'm not telling you the Wizards are winning a title in year 1, or even making a deep run right away. The best way to describe this team? A dark horse. A legit threat to push a title contender to 7 games. Winning it all might be a stretch, but for the first time since the Wall-Beal peak, Washington isn't hoping a shot goes in. They've got 2 established stars, a genuinely deep young core, and the #1 pick in a loaded draft all under one roof. That's the difference. This isn't a team hoping to be relevant again. This is a team that's finally built to actually compete. The only question left is how fast the pieces figure out how to play with each other. And honestly, after the better part of a decade stuck in no man's land, we've got real questions to answer is a massive step up from we've got nothing at all. For the first time in years, Washington's biggest problem isn't finding talent. It's figuring out what to do with all of it.